When life presses in on us and worries start to pile up, our natural instinct is to fight back in our own strength. We plan, we stress, we replay conversations in our minds, and we imagine every possible outcome as though our thinking alone could solve the problem. But there's a powerful truth that we often forget. God's battles are greater than our worries, and He fights where we cannot. You see, the battles that weigh us down are not always battles of flesh and blood. They are battles of the heart, battles of the mind, battles of circumstances beyond our control. And no matter how strong, clever, or determined we may be, there are fights we simply cannot win on our own. That's why God steps in. When you are lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, thinking about that person who hurt you, or the decision that went wrong, or the future that feels so uncertain, remember this: God is not asleep. He has not forgotten you. He is already working behind the scenes in ways you cannot see, arranging outcomes that will not only protect you, but will also bring about a victory that you could never achieve through worry. Worry does not move the hand of God. Faith does. Worry drains you of energy, while faith invites the strength of heaven into your weakness. Think of it like this: a child does not need to know how the storm outside will end. The child only needs to know that their parent is awake, alert, and standing guard. In the same way, we don't need to have all the answers to life's battles. We only need to know that God is in control, and He does not lose battles. He has never been defeated, and He never will be. Many of us spend so much time worrying about what others have said or done, carrying the heavy weight of trying to make things right ourselves. But the truth is, some battles are not ours to fight. Some doors are not ours to force open. Some enemies are not ours to confront. When we release those burdens into God's hands, we're saying, "Lord, I know this is too big for me, but it's not too big for you." And in that release, something shifts inside of us. The weight begins to lift, and peace starts to settle in our hearts, because we finally realize that the outcome was never meant to depend on our strength. God has a way of fighting battles that seems invisible to us until the victory is revealed. He fights in conversations we are not part of, in hearts we cannot reach, in circumstances we could never manipulate. And sometimes He fights by changing us, by calming our spirit, by strengthening our resolve, by teaching us to walk through fire without being consumed. The very places we feel weakest are often the very places He shows His greatest strength. This is why worry is such a thief. Worry tricks us into thinking we are in control, while faith reminds us that God is. Worry tells us that the fight depends on our efforts, but faith tells us that the battle belongs to the Lord. And when we truly grasp that, when we stop trying to swing our own sword and instead let Him take the lead, we will find rest even in the middle of the fight. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, the next time you're tempted to replay the hurt or obsess over the outcome, pause and remember, God is fighting for you. You may not see it right now, but His hands are at work in places you cannot reach. His wisdom stretches further than your understanding. His power is greater than your fear. And when He fights, the victory is always certain. Stop worrying. God is already at war on your behalf. Worry has a way of sneaking into our hearts so quietly that we don't even realize how much weight we're carrying until it begins to crush us. It clings to our thoughts, adds heaviness to our spirit, and makes even the simplest days feel like a battle. Worry is not passive. It actively steals our strength, our focus, and our peace. The more we feed it, the heavier it grows, until it feels like we're dragging chains we were never meant to carry. Yet in the middle of all this, there is a greater truth. Faith unlocks peace. Where worry binds us, faith sets us free. You see, worry keeps us circling the same problem without offering a solution. It convinces us that if we think about it long enough, if we rehearse every detail, if we keep scanning every possible outcome, somehow the weight will get lighter. But the opposite happens. The more we dwell on what could go wrong, the more powerless we feel. Faith, however, changes the equation entirely. Faith does not demand that we have every answer. It simply invites us to trust the one who already does. Faith does not pretend that the problem isn't real. It simply refuses to let the problem control us. There is something powerful that happens when we shift from worry to faith. The situation itself may not change immediately, but the weight we feel inside begins to lift. Worry says, I must carry this. Faith says, I will hand this to God. Worry drains life out of every moment. Faith breathes peace into even the darkest hours. And that peace doesn't come from ignoring reality. It comes from knowing that reality is never beyond God's reach. Think about how much time and energy worry consumes. We worry about the future, about what people think of us, about whether we'll succeed, about whether those who wronged us will ever face consequences. We worry as if worry itself has the power to rewrite outcomes, but it never does. Worry only rewrites our joy, erasing the peace that could be ours right now. Faith, on the other hand, has the courage to step back and say, even though I can't see how this will work out, I believe that God has already written the final word, and His word is peace. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack filled with rocks everywhere you go. That's what worry does to the soul. It adds unnecessary weight that God never asked us to bear. And the moment you choose faith, it's like handing that backpack over to someone stronger, someone who knows exactly where you're headed and how to get you there. Suddenly, your steps feel lighter, your heart feels freer, and you realize you were never meant to carry the load alone. This doesn't mean life will always feel easy. There will be storms. There will be setbacks. There will be moments when worry tries to sneak back in and whisper in your ear. But faith gives you the ability to silence those whispers with the reminder that peace is not the absence of problems. It is the presence of God in the middle of them. And when His presence fills your heart, worry no longer has the power to control you. I want you to think about this. Every second you spend in worry is a second stolen from your peace. Every moment you hand over to fear is a moment that could have been filled with trust. You cannot control what others do. You cannot control every outcome, but you can control where you place your trust. When you choose faith over worry, you are choosing freedom over bondage, peace over turmoil, and strength over weakness. So when worry rises like a wave, let faith rise higher. When fear tells you that the outcome will crush you, let faith remind you that you are already in the hands of the one who holds tomorrow. And when your heart feels heavy with the weight of everything you cannot fix, choose to trust that the God who has never failed will not fail you now. Worry adds weight, but faith will always unlock peace. One of the hardest lessons we ever learn in life is waiting. We live in a world that tells us everything should come quickly. We want answers now, healing now, justice now, solutions now. And when it doesn't happen in our time frame, frustration builds. Doubts begin to creep in, and we start to wonder if God has forgotten us. But here's the truth. Trusting God's timing brings strength in the middle of trials. His timing is not delayed, it is deliberate. It may not align with our schedule, but it is always perfect. When you're in the middle of a trial, the waiting can feel unbearable. You pray, you cry, you hope, and yet the situation doesn't seem to move. You watch others move forward, while you feel stuck in the same place. And in those moments, it's easy to let worry and discouragement take over. But what we often fail to see is that the waiting itself is not wasted. In God's hands, waiting becomes preparation. While we think nothing is happening, God is building something inside of us: patience, resilience, faith, and character that cannot be developed in comfort. We tend to measure strength by how fast we can push through a problem. God measures strength by how much we can trust Him while the problem still remains. It's in the waiting that we discover what our faith is really built on. If our faith is only strong when answers come quickly, then our faith is shallow. But if we can still trust, still worship, still stand firm when nothing seems to change, that is a faith that is unshakable. And that kind of faith only grows when we surrender to God's timing instead of trying to force our own. You see, our perspective is limited. We only see a fragment of the picture, but God sees the entire story. What feels like a delay to us is often God protecting us, preparing us, or aligning the pieces in ways we cannot imagine. If He gave us everything we asked for when we asked for it, we might ruin it because we weren't ready. Sometimes the greatest act of love he shows us is making us wait, because the waiting shapes us into who we need to be to carry the blessing once it comes. Think about how much energy we waste trying to control things that are out of our hands. We push, we stress, we force, and yet we can't move the mountain. And the more we struggle, the weaker we feel. But something shifts when we step back and say, Lord, I trust your timing, even when I don't understand it. That surrender doesn't make the problem disappear overnight, but it changes how we walk through it. Suddenly, instead of being drained by fear, we are strengthened by trust. Instead of being weighed down by impatience, we are lifted by hope. That strength doesn't come from us. It comes from God, and it is only released when we choose to let go of our timetable and embrace His. Sometimes the trial doesn't end when we want it to. The healing doesn't come as fast as we prayed for. The breakthrough doesn't happen when we expected it. But even in that, trusting His timing gives us endurance. It allows us to stand firm without crumbling. It allows us to keep believing without losing heart. And it allows us to find peace even when the storm hasn't passed yet. Because when you truly trust His timing, you realize that the delay is not a denial, and the silence is not abandonment. It is God working in ways that are higher than your understanding. Waiting is never easy. It tests our patience, it stretches our faith, and it humbles us in ways we never imagined. But waiting also makes us stronger. It teaches us that strength is not about avoiding trials, but about learning to walk through them with steady faith. And when the breakthrough finally comes, when the answer finally arrives, you will look back and see that the waiting was worth it, because the God who carried you through it has made you stronger than you ever thought you could be. Trusting God's timing brings strength in the middle of trials. There are moments in life when it feels like opposition rises out of nowhere. People misunderstand you, some speak against you, and others may even try to harm you. The weight of those attacks can feel overwhelming, as though you're standing alone on a battlefield without defense. But the truth is this: when enemies rise, God's protection always surrounds His children. You may not always see it with your physical eyes, but His covering is there, steady and unshakable, shielding you from things that would have destroyed you had He not been standing guard. Enemies come in different forms. Sometimes it's people who deliberately try to bring you down. Other times, it's situations, circumstances, or even the thoughts that plague your mind. The rise of enemies is never comfortable, but it is never beyond God's awareness. He is not surprised by the battles you face, and He does not leave you vulnerable. Just as a shepherd watches over his flock, standing between them and the wolf, God places Himself between you and what seeks to destroy you. There are battles you don't even know you've been spared from because His protection was already in place. The words that could have ruined your reputation, the plans that were meant to harm you, the traps set behind closed doors, many never touched you because God stepped in. You may have felt the sting of attack, but you did not fall because His hand lifted you. And if you look closely, you can see moments in your life where things could have been far worse, yet they weren't. That's not chance, that's divine protection. It's natural to feel fear when enemies rise. It's natural to feel anger, to want to fight back in your own strength. But the truth is, the greatest security we have is not in our ability to defend ourselves, but in our willingness to trust God's defense. He fights in ways we cannot fight. He sees strategies of the enemy that we cannot see. While we are limited to this moment, He sees the end from the beginning, and because of that, His protection is never late, never weak, never uncertain. Sometimes His protection comes as peace in the middle of chaos. While others may expect you to crumble, God steadies your heart. Sometimes His protection is the courage to stand firm while the storm rages around you. Other times, His protection is removing you from situations before they can harm you. And there are moments where His protection is simply holding you so closely that even though the attack comes, it cannot take away your peace, your joy, or your purpose. One of the greatest lies the enemy tells us is that we are alone when opposition rises. But that is never true. You are never abandoned, never forsaken, never left unguarded. God surrounds you like a shield. That means the battle may rage, but you are not unprotected. It means weapons may be formed against you, but they will not prosper. It means words may be spoken against you, but they will not define you. It means the plans of your enemies may rise, but they will collapse under the weight of God's covering. And here is something beautiful. When you trust His protection, you no longer have to live in fear of what people can do. You no longer have to exhaust yourself trying to fight every battle or respond to every attack. You can live in peace, knowing that God Himself is standing on every side of you. That doesn't mean you won't face opposition. It means opposition will never have the final word over your life. The next time enemies rise, don't let fear dictate your response. Don't let anger consume your heart. Instead, remember who surrounds you. Remember that you are covered, shielded, and guarded by the one who has never lost a battle. Even in the moments when you feel most vulnerable, His hand is strong around you, and His presence is your greatest defense. When enemies rise, God's protection always surrounds His children. So many of us live under the illusion that if we just work harder, think longer, or stress more deeply about our problems, somehow the breakthrough will come. We wear ourselves out believing that the victory depends entirely on our own strength. We replay conversations, strategize, worry, and push until we are drained and empty, only to discover that the problem is still standing there. But here's the truth we often overlook. Victory is not earned by stress, but by surrender to God's power. Stress may feel like effort, but it does not produce breakthrough. Surrender, on the other hand, opens the door for God to step in and do what only He can do. Think about how natural it is for us to tighten our grip when life feels uncertain. We want control. We want to dictate the outcome. We want to ensure that we come out on top. But the more we grasp, the more we discover how limited our strength really is. Stress is the fruit of control. It grows when we try to manage things beyond our reach. Yet surrender is the release of control, the moment we place our lives back into the hands of the one who sees all and knows all. And in that release, strength is renewed. Victory has never been about who can worry the longest or fight the hardest in human effort. True victory is about aligning with the one whose power is limitless. When we surrender, we aren't giving up. We are giving over. We are giving over the burden, the fear, the pressure, and the responsibility to God. We are saying, I recognize this fight is bigger than me, but it is not bigger than you. That act of surrender doesn't weaken us, it frees us. It removes the weight of stress and invites the power of heaven into our situation. Consider how much of our energy gets wasted in stress. We pace floors, lose sleep, snap at the people we love, and yet all that energy changes nothing. Stress cannot open doors. Stress cannot soften hearts. Stress cannot turn situations around, but God can. When we surrender, He begins to move in ways we could never orchestrate. He works behind the scenes, opening doors we never saw, touching hearts we could not reach, and aligning circumstances that were far beyond our control. What stress could not accomplish in months, surrender allows God to accomplish in moments. It's important to understand that surrender is not passive. It doesn't mean we stop working, or that we don't do our part. It simply means we stop carrying the weight that was never ours to carry in the first place. It means we show up, we walk in faith, we do what is in our hands, but we release the outcome into God's hands. And in that release, peace replaces panic, strength replaces weakness, and calm replaces chaos. Victory looks different when it comes from surrender. Instead of exhaustion, it comes with rest. Instead of bitterness, it comes with peace. Instead of pride, it comes with humility and gratitude. And because the victory came through God's power and not our own, we are able to enjoy it without fear of losing it. What we gain by stress, we often lose by stress, but what we gain through surrender is sustained by His strength. When you find yourself in the middle of a trial, ask yourself this: am I stressing, or am I surrendering? Am I trying to win this fight in my own power, or am I resting in the power of God? Because the truth is, stress will never bring you to victory. It will only wear you out. But surrender will place you under the covering of God's hand, where his strength becomes your strength, and his victory becomes your victory. Victory is not earned by stress, but by surrender to God's power. There's a deep exhaustion that comes when you try to carry battles on your own. You replay every wrong done against you, every word spoken behind your back, every betrayal, every injustice, and you feel like it's up to you to make it right. You fight in your thoughts, you fight in your emotions, and sometimes you even fight with your actions, trying to settle scores or prove your worth. But the more you struggle, the heavier it becomes. That's because we were never meant to fight alone. Stop carrying the fight by yourself. Let God's hands bring justice and peace. Carrying the fight alone will only drain you. It robs your joy, steals your sleep, and eats away at your spirit. You start to feel bitter, angry, and restless, as if the whole world is on your shoulders. And yet, in the end, you realize that no matter how hard you try, you cannot control how people act, what they say, or what they plot against you. Justice isn't truly in your hands. It belongs to God. Peace isn't something you can force. It's something he gives when you release the weight into his care. There is a freedom that comes when you finally say, "This is not my battle to carry anymore." It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of faith. It takes more strength to release a battle than to keep swinging in your own power. Letting go doesn't mean you approve of what was done to you, and it doesn't mean you don't care about what's right. It simply means you trust that God is a far better judge than you are. He sees every detail you missed. He knows motives you could never uncover, and his justice, unlike ours, is always perfect. When we try to bring justice in our own way, it often leads to more pain. We say words we regret. We make choices we wish we could undo. We allow bitterness to poison our hearts, and instead of healing, we dig the wound deeper. But when we allow God's hands to carry the fight, something different happens. He knows how to bring resolution without destroying us in the process. He knows how to deal with enemies without letting hate consume us. He knows how to balance justice with mercy in ways we could never imagine. Peace is the gift that comes when you let go. As long as you're holding the fight, you won't find peace. Your mind will be restless, your heart will be unsettled, and your soul will remain heavy. But when you place it in God's hands, suddenly you can breathe again. You realize it was never your responsibility to control the outcome. It was only your responsibility to trust him. And in that trust, peace floods in where anger once lived. Hope takes root where bitterness tried to grow. And strength rises where weakness once held you down. Some of you may be tired right now because you've been carrying battles for far too long. You've been trying to fight people, fight situations, fight the past, fight the pain, and you've reached the point where you're weary. That weariness is not meant to destroy you. It's meant to remind you that you were never meant to carry it alone. God is inviting you to lay it down, to let him fight for you, to let him bring justice in his way and peace in his time. It might not happen the way you expect. His justice may look different than yours. His peace may come before you ever see the resolution. But one thing is certain, when God carries the fight, the outcome is always better than anything you could have orchestrated. He not only deals with the situation, but he also heals your heart in the process. Stop carrying the fight alone. Let God's hands bring justice and peace. As we close, remember this: the battles that once weighed you down are never yours to carry alone. Worry fades, strength rises, and peace fills your heart when you trust God's power and timing. Walk forward knowing his protection surrounds you, his justice is certain, and his victory is already yours.